Goodness, I am so excited to be with you guys. Hey, I flew in from Lubbock, and let me tell you, man, Lubbock ain't stanky. It ain't stanky. It smells beautiful there. You get past the cows and the chickens, man, it is amazing. I love Lubbock, but like I said, I flew here. I landed at Dallas Love Field, and I had to get to SMC, so I pull out my phone, and I think, okay, Uber's the thing. Well, apparently not. Like, no Ubers. So some lady's like, you gotta use Lyft. Everyone's using Lyft. I was like, okay, I'll use Lyft. So I get to Lyft. I find my Lyft driver. He pulls up, y'all. There's 100 people I would expect to be driving me on Lyft. This was not one of them. Here is my Lyft driver. Freaking Santa Claus picks me up in Lyft, and we drive. I'm like, man, two things are going through my mind. Like, I cannot wait to tell my boys that I got a ride from Santa Claus. The second thing, I'm gonna get murdered by serial killer Santa Claus. Like, those are the two thoughts going through my mind. But he's not a serial killer. His name's Tim, great guy. Unless might be real. I don't know what ages we have in here. We'll see. But he gave me a gift, actually, at the end. That's how kind he was. He offered me a candy cane. I love gifts, y'all. I love gifts. I was surprised with a great gift in 7th grade. You see, my brother came home from a trip that he had taken to New York. And he reaches into his bag and he pulls out a candy red pair of Oakley's sunglasses. Now, when I was in 7th grade, Oakley's were everything, man. That's what everyone wore. I was just like, oh my gosh, Oakley's. And if that wasn't enough, he reaches into his bag again and he pulls out a brand new Rolex. Oh my goodness. I'm a small town, lower middle class kid. I'm staring at this watch. I'm taking off the sunglasses my dad got me out of the trunk drawer, putting on the Oakleys. I'm taking off the Timex my mom got me at Kmart because I wouldn't stop whining, putting on the Rolex. And I'm going to school, just looking around at my fellow classmates that used to be my peers, but now they're beneath me. You can imagine how passionate I was, how excited I was, which means you can understand how disappointed I was when the paint began to chip off of my Oakley sunglasses. And the gold began to wear off of my Rolex watch. And then the second hand stopped working, then the minute hand, then the hour hand. Come on. I was confused. But one of my fellow classmates very loudly helped me understand what happened. He said, Brent, the problem is you didn't get a pair of Oakleys and a Rolex, you got Folkleys and a Folex. I was deceived. I was duped. I was made a fool. But who cares? It was a pair of sunglasses and a watch. I threw them aside. I was sad for a little bit, but I got over it. The next time I got deceived was far worse. My freshman year of college, I actually went to OU, Boomer. Where y'all at? Yeah, that's where I went, freshman. Just like you as a freshman, I came in wanting new things. There was new classes, new schedule, new place to live. But what I was most excited about was new friends. And so if you go to OU, a great way to make new friends is to join a fraternity. So that's what I did. And I'll never forget, there I am with all my fraternity brothers. Like, first day, we go sit on these steps, right? And I'm sitting on these steps, and I'm just this little freshman, with the spiked up hairdo. And like, oh my God, so exciting. And this guy starts talking. This man starts talking. And he goes, fellas, look around you. These men will be the best men in your wedding and the pallbearers at your funeral. They will marry you and bury you. I'm like sitting there like an 18-year-old dude, I just met these guys. But all right, he said it in that deep, cool voice, so it must be true. It was hard to believe then, but then over the next month, I got to know these guys better, right? We had classes together. You walk into these big classes for the first time, you're so nervous, but then you see your pledge brothers, and they give you one of those like, that's all it takes. Oh, yeah, y'all having a hard time finding a seat? I'm going to go be with my pledge brothers. They gave me one of those, you know what I'm saying? You'll get there. We shared dorm floors together, which means they were over playing video games. These were my pledge brothers. We had pledge activities together. And then we partied together multiple nights every week. Man, these guys were my friends. I looked forward to being around them. I thought they were amazing. It was awesome, but there was a problem. There was a problem. I thought I'd done it. I thought I'd made friends, the thing I wanted. There was a problem. How was it that I had been surrounded by 40 guys? Class, parties, dorm floor, video games. How was it that I was surrounded by 40 guys, yet I still felt so alone? You see, many nights after those parties, I would come back to my dorm and I would sit on my Walmart futon, not Kmart. My mom got a new job. We're good now. And I would sit there. And I remember one specific night, I had thoughts like this. I feel sad. And I don't think anyone knows. I would think things like this. Man, I have pain. I have drama. I have hard things going on right now. And I don't think I have anyone to talk to about it. I would think things like this. I feel lonely. And I know I can't bring it up with those guys because when you talk about stuff like this, you get made fun of. And you know what else? I don't think they really care. You see, I thought I had friends, but I was deceived. I was duped. I was made a fool. And this time I didn't feel sad. Well, I did, but that wasn't the only thing I felt. This time I felt hopeless. I didn't know what to do, so I did the only thing I'd seen other people do when they felt sad. I literally get down from my futon, I get on my knees, and I don't pray, y'all. I don't do that at this point in my life. But I start talking to God, and I remember exactly what I said. I will never forget this prayer. God, there's something missing in my life, and I need you to fill it. I'm standing on this stage today. I'm here at SMC today because God answered that prayer my freshman year of college. I'm talking to you this morning about the answer to that prayer. You see, 2 days later, I got a phone call from a guy named Stephen Click. Go Frogs. If you're from TCU, you know Stephen Click. Well, he used to be at OU when I was a freshman. He calls me up, okay? He calls me up. Barely met the guy. It's like, hey, can we go to lunch? So here we go, Texadelphia, me and Stephen Click, and we're sitting there interacting with each other, and I couldn't put my finger on it at the time. I could not figure it out at the time. But when I left there, I knew this. There's something different about this guy. Because I feel closer to him in one lunch than I feel to all 40 of these guys over 3 months. Stephen helped me place my faith in Jesus as a freshman in college. And over the next few years, I got to spend time with him and his wife, Lacey, and then I figured it out. I figured out why it was different. Here's what it was. For the first time in my life, I got a taste of true, authentic, biblical friendship. And here's the thing, y'all. I will never go back to the way it was. You see, all of you are being pushed towards, you're being encouraged towards, you're being surrounded by the way the world does friendship. And you know what it is? It's rotten. It's rotten. And I'm not just making this stuff up. Statistics back me up. JP said something last year. He gave a similar talk. He said something last year that really stuck with me. He said, you guys are the most connected generation of all time, and that's true. Social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, like you can connect at any minute. FaceTime, you can be face-to-face with anyone, anywhere around the world in seconds. Travel time, you can travel anywhere. Get there faster than you ever could before. But then he said, although you are the most connected generation, you are simultaneously the loneliest generation of all time. You know what that means? You have more potential than anyone ever has had in the history of the world to make friends. And you're alone. Suicides on the rise. Depression on the rise. Social anxiety medication on the rise. Counselors and therapists booked through 2021. In the 1960s, the average American said they had 3 to 4 close friends. Today, they say they have less than 1. A survey was done recently, and it showed that the average American has not made a new friend in 5 years. You're like, hey man, I'm in college. That's got to be someone else. You can't be talking about us. No. I'm talking about you too. Here's some of the quotes from some of these studies from college students. Tell me if you can identify with any of these things. Here's things college students are saying. I'm surrounded by people, but I don't feel known. I'm the life of the party, but I lay in bed at night wondering, do they really care? I watch Netflix and play video games because going out and being with people is draining. I want to talk about things in my life that matter, but my buddies would just make fun of me. I desire authentic connection, but everyone seems fake. I've become a person I never thought I would be, done things I never thought I would do, said things I never thought I would say, just to get people to like me. And you know what? I still am not sure if they do. And I thought college was supposed to be about making memories and making friends. I thought I was supposed to be happy. I thought I was supposed to be satisfied. What happened? You were deceived. You were duped. And if you're not careful, you are going to be made a fool. You see, the Bible speaks to friendship so strongly. And who you choose to be your friends. Let's look at some of the Proverbs. Look at this one, Proverbs 12:26. It says this. It's gone. It's okay, I got it right here. Proverbs 12:26, the righteous choose their friends carefully, but the way of the wicked leads them astray. Astray means like wandering purposelessly. That's what you get. It says this about friendship. One who has unreliable friends comes to ruin. Ruin's the idea of like if you grab a clay pot and you were just to shatter it onto the ground and crush it and step on it, that's what somebody with unreliable friends gets. And then Proverbs 22:24-25 says, do not associate with one who's easily angered, or you may learn their ways and get ensnared or trapped with no escape, right? So let's recap. You choose your friends wrongly, and you live a purposeless life, continually being smashed and shattered by them, and the worst part of all is you're trapped. There will become a point where you will be trapped in those friendships with no way out. You know what that is? That's rotten. That is rotten friendship. Hey, is the theme of our conference rotten? No, I put it out there. It's a terrible theme. Like it's not going to work. The theme of our conference is fresh. It's the opposite of rotten, which is why this morning I want to introduce you to a fresh way of choosing your friends. I want you to have some fresh friends. I want you to choose fresh friends. Now notice I didn't say change your friends. I didn't say make your friends better. You actually need to choose new friends. And you're like, hey man, you don't know my friends. You're right, I don't know your friends. I know some of your friends and they're not that great, but I don't know a lot of your friends. You're right. But I do know this. I do know what Proverbs 26 says. It says, many friends claim to have unfailing love, but a faithful friend who can find? I do know the type of friend I'm about to describe to you is not very common. They are rare. You don't get them by accident. You don't stumble upon them. You got to seek them out. You can't do that. That throws me off. I'm just kidding. I'm the opposite. You start yelling, I'm just going to get confused. What's going on up here? I'm already confused. Thanks a lot, man. Come on. I'm just kidding. I love you. Get that guy a book or something. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to teach you how to choose fresh friends. Listen, where we're going to do that at is in the book of 1 John. Because here's who John is writing to towards the end of his life. He's writing to a church that is suffering from the consequences of some bad friends. And so in order to refute that, he's going to give us the elements we need for fresh friends. So we're going to be in the book of 1 John. If you have a Bible and want to go there with me, you can. If not, it'll be on the screen, obviously. But the first element that John is going to give us for our friendships is this: truth. Truth. Now, these may not be characteristics you would normally search for, right? This is if you're at friends.com, this isn't the kind of stuff you're saying, right? Like, you're like, I want her to be pretty, but not as pretty as me. I want them to laugh at my jokes, but not one of them annoying laughs. You know? I don't want them to like cats. They have a sweet beach house in Destin, and they're not a serial killer. Search. Like, that's what you want. I'm going to give you some different elements, maybe ones you've never thought about before, and the first one's this: truth. Now, why truth? Truth, because with all friendship, you guys got to realize this, with all friendship, you build that friendship upon some type of foundation, right? That's what you do. That's how you become friends with someone. You create a foundation. So it could be like, hey, we're in the same fraternity, there's our foundation, so we're friends. Hey, we grew up together, so there's our foundation, so we're friends. We're on the same team, so that's our foundation, so we're friends. We all do this. We all create foundations by which we build our friendships upon. And you're like, it's not a big deal. That's just how friends are made, right? That's how it's supposed to go. Well, it is a big deal. Because what you'll learn is whatever foundation you choose to build your friendship upon determines the quality of the friendship and the strength of the friendship. Whatever it is you choose, which is why, and John knows this, which is why he's going to start out the way he does. He wants to give us the firmest foundation that you can build a friendship upon. So let's jump into it. He starts right from the very beginning. 1 John, verse 1. Follow with me. It says, that which was from the beginning. Now, this isn't going to be straightforward. We've got to figure out who he's talking about. That which was from the beginning, which we have heard, which we have seen with our eyes. Who's he talking about here? Which we have looked upon and have touched with our hands. Concerning the word of life. The life was made manifest. Who are we talking about here? If I asked my three boys, they would give me the answer they give anytime I ask a question, and they'd be right this time. Jesus. We're talking about Jesus. That's who he's talking about here. This is John. And what's awesome is John's not talking about him the way we do, where we're like, dude, 2,000 years ago, you could imagine what this guy was like. Here, read this book. That's not what John's saying. John's saying, hey, remember he who was from the beginning, who I heard with my own ears, who I saw with my own eyes, and who I touched with my own hands. For the testimony I'm giving you is a first-person account. I saw it. Remember it. That it's true. He keeps going in verse 2. The life was made manifest, and we have seen it, and we testify to it, and then we proclaim to you the eternal life. And that's what JP was talking about a couple days ago. When many of you stood up, it was proclaimed to you the eternal life, the truth, and many of you accepted that truth. And that's what John's talking about here. Remember that truth, the truth of Jesus. Because in verse 3, he says this, that which we have seen and heard, just so you don't forget, we saw it and we heard it. He really wants them to remember who he is, that he was with Jesus himself. He says this, we proclaim also to you. We told you. Now why? That's the question we want to answer right now. Why did he tell them? So that you too may have fellowship with us. And indeed, our fellowship is with the Father and his Son, Jesus Christ. Why does he tell them? He tells them because he wants to have fellowship, koinonia. He wants to have this common bond around something. He wants to lay a foundation. And that foundation is the only thing he needs, the truth, for his friendship to be built upon. Why would he choose that? Because what you build your foundation on will determine the quality and strength of your friendship. And he knows that this is the strongest foundation. But there was a problem. There was a problem. The reason John was writing this, we see in 1 John 2:26. He says, I write these things about those who are trying to deceive you. You see, there were friends in this church who thought, hey, let's actually build our foundation upon something else, not the truth of Jesus. There's other things we could choose. But John knows the problem they're going to run into. This past semester, I got into the fastest growing sport in America. Anybody know it? Pickleball. See, because you're not a 60-year-old woman, you didn't know that. If we were in a conference of 60-year-old women, they'd be like, whoa, yeah. Pickleball, yeah. And don't even mess with me because my partner Vonda will wreck you. Like, it's like tennis, man. It's a miniature version of tennis. You don't need to know anything else. I'm in a pickleball tournament. Yeah, I play in tournaments. That's how serious it got. Am I the one? I don't know. Look it up on Facebook, profile pic. Here we go. I'm in this tournament, right? In the middle of a match, I sit next down to a guy named Mike. We were playing pickleball. That's what our friendship was built around, pickleball. We had that foundation. So we start talking. Mike's got a wedding ring on. Anytime I see a wedding ring, always the same thing. Hey, Mike, you married? No. Never happens. I got the wedding ring. I thought I got it. Thought it'd be an easy one. Oh, man, I'm bad. I thought you had that wedding ring on. I just thought, maybe, yeah, no, I mean, my wife actually passed away. I was like, oh, man. I'm so sorry to hear that, Mike. What happened? He goes, about 8 months ago, my wife was driving home with my 2 daughters, and the cruise control in the car malfunctioned. And so she came around a turn, and she couldn't slow down, and she rolled the car down the side of a hill, down into a ditch, and it landed upside down. Since it was down in a ditch, cars were driving by, and no one could see them, so they were stuck there for 4 hours before someone finally noticed them. And you're like, why didn't somebody get out of the car? Well, because his wife died on impact. One of his daughters in the back was unconscious. They'd find out later that she suffered such severe brain damage, it was going to take 3 months for her even to regain the consciousness. And now she's learning how to eat, walk, all the basic things again. And one of his daughters was conscious. But her problem was she was pinned between the front, the seat, and the dashboard, and it had broken both her femurs and locked her in the car, and she couldn't reach her phone. So she just sat there for 4 hours next to her dead mom and her unconscious sister. You know what I didn't say to Mike? Man, good thing we have pickleball. Why? It's not enough. It's not strong enough. It can't handle that. You're like, oh, what about fraternity? I'll build it on fraternity. That's what I'll do, man. I'll build it on fraternity, right? Well, this past semester, there was a fraternity guy at Texas Tech who committed suicide in October. One of my friends, Trace, was in that fraternity house. He was a minister there. I was talking to him about it the other day, and I was like, Trace, what happened whenever like these guys found out their pledge brother committed suicide? What did they do? He was like, man, they didn't know what to do. You know what they didn't do? They didn't say, hey, guys, thank goodness we got fraternity. Hey, we're brothers. Why? It's not enough. It's not enough for that. It's not strong enough. It's not good enough quality. It can't hold that kind of weight. But luckily, Trace loves Jesus. So Trace rallied all these guys together, and he laid out the platform, the foundation of Jesus before them. And these guys, for the first time, start talking about what happened. And he said it's the closest they'd ever felt. Why did it do that? Because Jesus is strong enough to handle anything that your friendship could throw at you. That's why John pleads, build your friendships upon this foundation. It's the sturdiest foundation that exists. And you're like, nah, yeah, sure, Jesus can be involved, but you also need music in common. You got to wear similar clothes. They got to be like you. They got to laugh. You got to have the same sense of humor. Like, that's what the world's telling us. Sure, Jesus can be involved, but I need all these other things too. Man, I have a friend named Christian Martinez. He's from Mexico. I'm from the United States. He speaks Spanish with English as a second language. I speak English, and I can count to 10 in Spanish. He wears like super tight clothes. I wear baggier clothes. I try to talk to sports with him, nothing. I try to talk music, nothing. Man, you look at us two and you'd be like, there is no reason. The world would say there is no reason for you and Christian Martinez to be friends. But did you know that Christian Martinez loves Jesus more than most people I know? So God would say you have the only reason you need to be friends. Guys, you gotta build your friendships on the firmest foundation. Truth. And you're like, oh, so I can't have any friends that don't love Jesus? No, that's not what I'm saying. I got all kinds of pickleball friends that's built on pickleball right now that don't know Jesus. I got other guys around my community, my fishing buddies that don't know Jesus. I got all kinds of other foundations. But look at what John says in verse 4. He says, we're writing these things to you. Why? So that our joy may be complete. Sure, I have those friendships, but I realize that they will never come to completion. I will never experience the joy God wants me to have in those friendships until that person steps onto this platform with me. Sure, I have friends that don't know Jesus, but I'm praying they would because I want to experience the joy of that type of friendship with them. They got to have truth. Point number two, element number two that you have to have actually is unlocked. This one gets unlocked whenever they believe the truth. So you get this as sort of a byproduct of them believing the truth, and that's this, righteousness. Hey, you need friends with righteousness, and you're probably like, it's kind of a churchy word. That's not what I was expecting you to say, righteousness. Like, what are you even talking about? Well, let's look at it here. 1 John 3:10. What are we talking about when it comes to righteousness? It says this, by this it is evident who are the children of God and who are children of the devil. Now, if you ever see that in the Bible, this is the evidence by which you're a children of God or a children of the devil. You need to pause. You need to keep reading. You need to figure that out. Let's see what he says. Whoever does not practice righteousness is not of God, nor is the one who does not love his brother. Okay, so righteousness is a result of someone believing the truth because the evidence is that they would be righteous if they believed that. But we need more, right? Look at verse 7. Little children, let no one deceive you. Whoever practices righteousness is righteous, as he is righteous. What's righteousness? Well, it's the person who practices righteousness. That doesn't help us at all either. Well, luckily in 1 John, verse 6 through 2:1, I think John gives one of the best explanations that he could possibly give, that you can possibly take when it comes to describing the difference between your unrighteous friends and your righteous friends. So here's what I want to do right now. I want to do a little evaluation for you, okay? I want us to evaluate our friends. I'm going to give you two categories using 1 John 6 through 2:1, and he's going to go back and forth between an unrighteous friend and a righteous friend. And I want you to think about, where are my friends? The people I'm closest to, which category do they fall into? So let's jump into it. 1 John 1:6. If we say, this is the unrighteous friend, by the way, if we say we have fellowship with him while we walk in darkness, we lie and do not practice the truth. You say you have fellowship with him. They say they're good. They claim to be good, but they walk in the darkness. You know what that is? Fake. You know what that is? A hypocrite. You know what a hypocrite is? An actor, someone who puts on a mask. They claim to be one thing, cross, necklace, go to church, but they're something entirely different. They default to darkness. They say, hey, bro, we're boys. Oh, we're boys? Then why do you keep making fun of me to our friends to make yourself look good? She says, hey, I'm with you, girl. I'm with you. Yeah, are you? Then why do you keep ditching me for that guy at every party? He says, bro, we're tight. Yeah, my grandpa just died, and I didn't hear a word from you. She says, hey, I'm for you. Then why do you keep sliding shots across the table when you know how this is going to end up? They say they're good, but their default is darkness. They're unrighteous. But there's a different type of friend that you can have who's righteous. And look how he's described in verse 7. But if we walk in the light. This is a different type of friend. If we walk in the light, we have fellowship with one another, and the blood of Jesus cleanses us from all sin. Walk in the light. That's not someone who doesn't have any sin. That's someone who's willing to be open about their sin. They're honest. This person's fake. They wear a mask. This person's real and authentic. They're not trying to hide anything. My first Bible study at Kaleo, maybe you've heard of it, we're going to talk about it a little later. My first Bible study at Kaleo, I'm coming in there and I'm expecting the normal question from the Bible study leader, right? Like I don't know, like who read their Bible today? Like that would be a good opening question. But that's not what he said at all. Instead, he looks at the group and he goes, hey, which of you guys is looking at porn? Hold. Don't say anything. You know, darkness, back up. He asked the question. I'm locked in. I'm like, I'm not saying a word. I know how to hide in darkness. Like, you don't answer this one. Play it cool, fellas. And then one of the guys in the study does something what I thought was so dumb. He steps out into the light. And he goes, you know what? I've been looking at porn. I've been looking at porn since I was 13 years old. Oh crap, he said it. All right, that's fine. We still got 2 more. We're good. Dude's dumb. Then the next guy steps out in my Bible study and says, yeah, me too, man. I've been looking at porn too, and worse than that, it's kind of turned girls into an object for me, and so now I just use girls to get whatever I want sexually. Okay. At least the Bible study leader, me and him, we're cool, dude. We don't look at porn, do we? Yeah, over here, see me? Okay, here we go. Then the leader steps out into the light. And he says, hey, I get that, fellas. I was in the same place too. And I'm sitting there, y'all, with my claws just dug in, into my seat cushion, just like, holy cow, I don't want to do this, but they all did it. What should I do? Oh gosh, well, okay, I'm going to go for it. And I just step out. And for the first time in my life, with 3 other guys, I stepped into the light, and I said, all the things you guys just said, me too, and more. And guess what? No judgment. Nobody made a joke. Nobody mocked me. In fact, the book of James says you can confess your sins and find healing. That's what I found, being with these guys in the light. It was amazing. You know how good it feels not to hide anymore? Psalm 32:3 says, David says this, he says, whenever I kept silent from not telling people about my sin, my bones wasted away from my groaning all day long. Doesn't it just eat you alive when you can't tell people about your sin because you're scared? But you get out there and it's life-giving. That's what righteous friendship's like. Let's look at another depiction of the unrighteous friend. Verse 8, if we say we have no sin, this is what the unrighteous friend does. He says he has no sin, right? My boys, I've been FaceTiming on those 3 boys. They love to wrestle. Like, that's all they're asking me. Like, when are you going to come home so we can wrestle? And we get into some intense wrestling matches, y'all. Like, if we throw down, they can all 3 come at me now. So I'm literally, like, getting attacked and not sure if I'm going to win when it starts. The other day we were wrestling, and Levi, man, sometimes people just get hard knocks. He just knocks straight in the face, my 3-year-old, just bam, like boom, just takes him down like the real injury where you stop wrestling. And he's just over there crying. And I'm looking at Levi, thinking he's going to be looking at him, but Levi's looking at me, my 5-year-old. I'm like, bro, you just kicked him in the face. You got to do something. And he's staring at me with no emotions. I'm like, dude, you're a serial killer like Santa. I'm like, bro, say you're sorry. Sorry. No, like you mean it. I'm sorry. No, like go over there and hug him. He like puts his hands on his head. I did it, Dad. You know why he was acting like that? Because he didn't think he did anything wrong. He didn't think he did anything wrong, and that's fine because he's 5 years old and Knox is 3. It doesn't hurt so bad. But when you're 18 years old, 19 years old, 20 years old, and you're surrounded by people who kick you in the face, not literally, unless you hang out with ninjas, but figuratively, right? Figuratively. And they hurt you. Friendships have pain, they have conflict, they have issues. And you're hanging out with someone who's just staring at you cold-faced like, I didn't do anything wrong. That's what the unrighteous do. No, man, that's not sin. Oh, that thing we're doing, that's not sin. Dude, you're just being uptight. That's not sin. No, I didn't hurt you. That's your fault. You're too sensitive. No sin. That's the unrighteous. But John says the righteous are different. Verse 9, if we confess our sins, he's faithful and just to forgive our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. There's another group of people who have sin as well, who make mistakes as well, who kick people figuratively in the face as well, but the only difference is they confess their sins. They're in the light. They're under the truth of Jesus. They've got no reason to hide. And so they just put it out there before God. Here's what I did wrong. And you know what God tells them to do? You go tell the person you wronged. And then they come to you and they ask for your forgiveness. I had a guy call me a year ago, and he wanted to fly to Lubbock. It was like a $350 flight to Lubbock. And he's like, hey, can I take you out to dinner? I'm like, yeah, it's a $50 dinner. So he's $400 in the hole. So I'm like, man, what's he doing? Recruiting me to a job? Like, what's going to happen here? And he looks across the table and he said, I came here because of one thing. I wanted to tell you, I'm sorry. He began to tell me these things from years before that he wanted to apologize for because the Lord had been revealing to him. And you probably like what happens in that moment when someone tells you that? We're not friends anymore. No way. That's not true. We're as close as we've ever been because of that. That's what happens with confession. Healing, health, life. freshness. You have righteous friends. One more quality for the unrighteous friend. Verse 10, it says, if we say we have not sinned. There's a disease called CIPA disease. I think it's just CIPA disease. I don't know if you say it like Kippa, but CIPA is what I looked up. And it's a disease where you don't feel pain. And you may be thinking like, that's a good thing. Like you don't feel pain, that's awesome, I want that. But it's actually a very terrible thing, a very dangerous thing. Because for you cut yourself, it hurts, so you go heal it, you go get healthy. But for someone with CIPA disease, they cut themselves, they don't know it, they go to sleep, they could bleed out. They're oblivious to pain. You know one of the saddest things about unrighteous friends sometimes? It's not that they're just not admitting their sin, even though you know they know. It's that they're completely oblivious to it. Which means they're going to hurt you, and they're not even going to know it. That's worse than sad. That's when you're hopeless in your friendships. They don't even know they're hurting you. But John says there's a righteous friend. And he says, I write these things in chapter 2, verse 1, so that you may not sin. The righteous person avoids their sin. They don't keep making the same mistakes over and over again. They're battling their sin, and you get to battle sin together with them. Think about how amazing that is. I want you to think about these two categories, and where are your friends at? Are they in the unrighteous category or in the righteous category? And you may be thinking, okay, I got them in here in these two categories. Okay, what's the point? Am I like somewhere in the middle? No, it's actually worse. You're not somewhere in the middle, okay? In college, I led a Bible study, and at the end of it, it had all the freshmen there. At the end of it, the pledge trainer walks in, like across the top, and he just goes, Reinke, President's Room. Reinke's my last name. Speaking like a caveman, but I understood him. I go into the president's room, I get all the guys out, and he grabs me by the shirt. I'm not joking, y'all. I'm a grown man at this time. I'm like 22 years old. This kid's like 19, but he's huge, man. He's huge. He grabs me, I gotta say that, right? Or y'all gonna be like, dude, you're weak. No, he's really, really big. And he holds me up against the wall by the shirt like a middle school kid against the lockers. And he's just so mad. He goes, Brent, me and my boys wanted to go out to the bar tonight, but guess what? We couldn't find a ride because of your stupid Bible study. Luckily, the president came in, diffused the situation, but he was not done yet. He went back and got on his email. He started emailing out to all of our entire fraternity. He sends out an email. That's how he used to do it. And I start reading this email that comes out to our fraternity. He says a bunch of stuff, but the thing that really stuck out to me is he said, hey, we got to stop these guys who are ruining our fraternity. Listen to what they're doing. They're taking guys out to lunch. They're sharing this diagram about Jesus, and they're changing people. Why can't we just let people stay the same? And you know, if I could write an email back, I didn't at the time, but I wish I could write an email back. Here's what I would say. Hey, pledge trainer, you're right. You're right, I am taking people to lunch. I am telling them about Jesus, and I do want them to change. I'm trying to pull them into the light. But here's where you're wrong. You don't want people to stay the same. Because you're taking guys out to parties. You're sharing your lifestyle, and you're pulling them towards the darkness. You see, there is no middle ground. You're either with unrighteous friends who are pulling you into the darkness, or you're with righteous friends who are pulling you into the light. There's nothing in between. Did you know there was a man in the Bible named Job who God literally gave Satan permission to pull him out of the light? He was a righteous man. He was living in the light. Give Satan permission so Satan concocts a plan. What would your plan be if you could do anything to pull someone out of the light? Well, Satan does what maybe a lot of us would think of. Step number 1, I'll destroy all the buildings, I'll burn all his fields. But the problem is Job stays in the light. That's fine. I'll kill all his children. He does it, but Job stays in the light. I'll take his health. He puts these just brutal boils all over his skin. But Job stays in the light. It's not working. Okay, bring out the big guns. I'll turn his wife against him. His wife comes in, she looks at him, and she goes, Job, you curse God and die. His own wife. He looks at her and goes, you foolish woman, get out of here. Stays in the light. Is that amazing? Those 4 things. What a freaking plan to try to get someone. I mean, that would work on most of you, I'm guessing. right? If Satan did those things to you, that would probably work. Didn't work on Job, so Satan actually has one final plan. What's he going to do? What could be worse than that? Here's what Satan does. He brings Job's 3 closest friends into the scene. And y'all, those 4 things he did at the beginning, that took like 4 chapters of Job. For the next 30 chapters, it's Job's closest friends subtly trying to deceive him to come into the darkness. And here's the thing, out of all the things Satan did, that's the one that almost works. In fact, if God wouldn't have stepped in at the end, it might have. What's going to cause you to walk in the darkness when you go back this spring? I guarantee for most of you, it's not going to be some traumatic event. It's not going to be some big question you're wrestling with. For most of you, what's going to pull you back into the darkness is your closest friends. That's what Satan will use. Proverbs 13:20, he who walks with the wise grows wise, but a companion of fools suffers harm. That's how he does it. You have to have righteous friends. But the truth also unlocks another element, and this might be one of my favorite elements. It's the third one, love. It unlocks love, okay? This is what 1 John 3:14 says. We know that we have passed out of death into life because we love the brothers. It's another result of someone who has Jesus as the foundation of their truth. You get someone who's righteous and you get someone who loves. Now, when you hear the word love, though, like what are you thinking? Like what comes to mind when you think love? I'm going to guess like a lot of different things. You see, like if an alien species dropped down right now, and was like, hey, I want to understand love, so I'm going to listen to how these people talk about it. And we're like, well, hey, man, I love my family, I love my wife, and whoa, dude, I love Torchy's tacos. Wait, love family, love your wife, love Torchy's tacos. Okay, I'm confused. But you know what I mean, right? If I say I love my wife and I love tacos, you're not like, oh, man, if Brent had to choose, it'd be really tough for him, right? You know. We have context. Well, the Greeks were a little more mature than us. They had multiple words for love. For instance, one of their words was eros. And eros was like the love you have for something that gives you pleasure. It was like being sexually gratified. It was that type of love. Like, you please me. It's like your wedding night, so I love you. There was another word they used, phileo. And that was a conditional love, but it was a love that said, hey, I love you because I admire you. This is the love we're more familiar with. I love you because I admire you. I love you because of certain qualities about you. You're kind to me. You care for me. Like, there's still conditions involved, and we know that love. But the love I'm talking about is neither eros, neither phileo. It's a different type of love. In fact, it's a love that even the Greeks, the secular Greeks, rarely used. It was a word that was inconceivable to humanity. Like, they could not wrap their minds around this word. And the word was agape. And the secular writers may have never used it, but the Bible uses it hundreds of times, and 1 John uses it over 20 times. His book. Do you know why it's used so much in the Bible? Because the source of this love is only from God. No taco can give it. No human gives it to you. The source is only from God, right? He's the one. And you're like, well, how did he give it to us? Let me explain it to you. You see, God the Father was in heaven next to God the Son, Jesus. And God the Father made a decision a few thousand years ago. He said, I'm going to send my greatest gift. I'm going to send my greatest treasure down to that planet as a baby. And Jesus submitted and went. And Jesus grew up in wisdom and stature, and when he was 30 years old, he started his ministry on earth, and for 3.5 years, he interacted and did ministry with the disciples, and after 3.5 years, he told his disciples, the time has come. So he took his disciples to the Garden of Gethsemane, and he began to pray in that moment, because you guys know what's about to happen here. And that's the pressure and the stress that he's feeling, the weight of the sins of the world as he's about to go to the cross and he's praying. It says there was so much stress that he was sweating drops of blood and water. This really happened, y'all. John saw it. He heard it. He felt it with his own hands. This is no story. This is the truth. Sweating drops of blood. And then some guards came and got him, and they began to mock him, and they created instruments to torture him. One of them was these cords of leather with animal bones at the end, like lots of cords in a stick. And man, they would just take it and they would swing it across him, and they would be little hooks in these bones, and it would hit his skin so that whenever, not only did that hurt, but whenever they pulled it out, it would rip the flesh open. And they would hit him and hit him and hit him. In fact, Isaiah says that he was marred unlike any other son of man, which means if you would have saw Jesus before he went, you would recognize him. If you would have seen him after this, you would have no idea who he was. But what is that image? What is that image of this guy that we couldn't even make out who he was in this moment if we could see him? Love. It's love. Jesus could have called down 10,000 angels to stop that, but he didn't. Why? Because he loves you. God could have said, stop it, enough. But he didn't. Why? Because he loves you. And we know what happens after that. Jesus goes to the cross, stakes through his arms, through his legs, dies a painful death. Why? Because he loves you. Well, what did you do to deserve it? That's how we think, right? Why? What did we do to deserve it? And you may be thinking in your head, oh, I know the answer to this. Nothing. We didn't do anything to deserve it. See, I got that one right. Looking at your friend, it's nothing. He's going to say nothing right now. No. Worse than nothing. You did everything that you could to stop it. Everything that you could to stop it. You see, agape love is an unconditional love. Which means I love you because I love you. It's more than that. I love you, and there is not a single thing you can do to stop me. You rebelled against Jesus. He united. You spoke against Jesus. He spoke for you. You turned away over and over and over again, and he pursued time and time again. Why? Because he loves you. And that's the love I'm talking about. And here's the amazing thing about this love. Look at what 1 John 4:19 says. It says, we love because he first loved us. Now that we've had some training on our Greek, let me show you how this reads. We agape because he first agaped us. That type of love that was inconceivable for anyone who follows Jesus and experiences the love God gave them, it is no longer inconceivable. It is actually possible for you to live out that type of love to others. Let me ask you this. Do any of you have a friend in your life right now that no matter what you did to them, they would keep loving you? Or are all your friendships conditional? Like if you get dropped from your fraternity tomorrow, who's sticking around? Like if you stop drinking, who's going to be there? If you start trying to live a righteous life, who's going to want to be around you and keep loving you? If they're not going to stay, it's conditional. It's a different type of love. Who's going to love you because they love you? Those are the friends you need. But remember what Proverbs 26 says. Many try to find friends, or many look for friends. I'm just going to brutalize it here. Gosh. Let me say it right. Yes. Many friends claim to have and fell in love, but a faithful friend who can find. Many friends claim to have and fell in love, but a faithful friend who can find. Many friends claim to have and fell in love, but a faithful friend who can find. They're rare. And if you leave here tonight, or today, after this conference, and you go searching for them wherever you live, here's what I think that's telling us. It's going to be very hard for you to find them. But here's the crazy thing, y'all. It's rare to find them, but you are in a rare situation, okay? Because right now, here's what I can do for you. I can find them. I can find them. In fact, I'm going to find them for you right now. if you are going to be a D group leader, or a leader of any sort, KLP or whatever your project calls it for Kaleo this summer, please stand. Stay standing, okay? Because I'm going to talk about these people for a second. You may be thinking friends like this are hard to find, and you're right, but they're right here in front of you, okay? This is them. You may be wondering, how does someone become a leader at Kaleo? Is it just because they've been before? No. Do you know how people become leaders at Kaleo? They build their foundation on the truth. They live righteous lives. They're not perfect. You know it. You look at them like, are you sure? They're not perfect, but they walk in the light. They walk in the light, and they confess their sins to God, and they confess their sins to each other, and they battle against sin. You know what quality I might like the most about them? They love with a love that you have never been loved with before. Because they've experienced the agape love from God, they will give that agape love to you. You guys can have a seat. There's a lot of things to get excited about for Kaleo, y'all. San Diego, PCB, Destin, all these different places you can go. They're going to be amazing. You're going to be on the beach, you're playing volleyball, spike ball, all the things you love. You're going to have a job, you're going to make some money. You might even get the internship that's out there somewhere. But I promise you this, none of those reasons will be the reasons you'll be glad you went. You know, people say Kaleo changed my life, and I'm like, no, it didn't. You're just confused a little bit. People changed your life. People that God has transformed changed your life. Imagine with me for a second. Imagine with me that you got to spend a summer with a group of people who built their foundation on something that didn't crumble the moment hard things happened, but stood firm and actually strengthened your relationship. Imagine spending a summer with people who walk in the light for the first time in your life. You don't have to sit back in the darkness. You can be honest and open. No one will mock you. No one will make fun of you. You will be embraced, and you will find healing. And you'll battle those sins together. And imagine being in a place where the people around you love you, not because you're in the same fraternity, not because you're in the same sorority, not because you're on the same team, not because you have money and they want to be around you, not because of this, not because of that, but because they love you. They love you because they love you. You don't even have to do anything for it. No strings attached. Why keep imagining it? Experience it. It will change you. It changed me. Father, thank you so much for this morning. I know when I first heard this, I never thought about the power of friendship and what it could mean. But now that I know and I've experienced it, I want everyone to be there with me. God, I pray over this room. I pray no one would second guess your word. They would believe you. That they would believe John, who physically saw you and heard you and touched you, that you are the truth. And because of that, you are the firmest foundation to build friendship upon. And you do unlock the gates of righteousness and love for real friendship to thrive. I want these people to experience fresh friends. But that can't happen, Father, unless you do something in their hearts. God, I pray you give them these friends this semester. I pray they would come to Kaleo and get 9 weeks building these types of friendships. And I pray those things in Jesus' name.